I'm from a farm in southern Manitoba. Here's a photo of it back in 1982. I was just out of high school when this picture was taken. This picture was taken by a spy satellite that nobody even knew existed at that time. It was a Cold War era keyhole spy satellite that belonged to the US government, and they spent most of their time taking pictures of the USSR and China. But even back then, for whatever reason that day, they were taking images of southern Manitoba. An executive order by Clinton in 1995 declassified these images, and I ordered a copy off the website. For 1982, it's pretty good imagery, right? You can see our house and farmyard, and if we look at the field across from the farmyard, across the river, you can even see patches of the weed crackgrass growing in one of our fields, which at that time was impossible to control. I didn't end up staying on the farm. I went to university and eventually became a professor, but I still have lots of cousins down there. In fact, just south of there, there's a Shirtliffe road where my cousins Tammy and Colin and Scott and Brenda and Zeke all farm and all live on the land. In university, I studied agronomy, which is the science of crop management. I always felt that I should be doing some work that benefits the farmers, the people that grow the food we eat. When I became a professor here at the university, it was important for me to establish a research program that would benefit farmers. I wanted to create solutions to control problems like how to control herbicide-resistant weeds, how to manage new crops, and how to stop weeds from spreading. Around 2015, something happened that would change the trajectory of my career. I bought a drone from a local Saskatchewan company called Dragonfly and started using it to take images of my crops. At this time, the University of Saskatchewan was putting together a large research grant that was looking at designing and breeding better crops for food security. I was pulled into that grant because, well, I was the guy with the drone. We ended up getting that grant, and I ended up being one of the leads, and today we are still working with crop breeders on phenotyping crops. Phenotyping, that's a word that we often use in my world, but I understand it may be less common to many. Essentially, it's the process of measuring plant characteristics. From the images we get with the drone, we can precisely quantify important crop traits like the timing of crop development, the crop's growth rate, and even the number of flowers or heads that it produces. This helps breeders select better varieties for farmers. This work is essential in helping breeders all over the world. But what I really want to do as well was to use crop imagery to better manage the land. Over the course of our research and collecting images off of our drones, I noticed that all farmland varies. It varies in weeds, how hilly it is, and how wet the land is, and ultimately in yield, its productivity. For example, crops grown at the tops of hills don't grow as well as those lower down the slope. However, in areas that are too close to wetlands, the soil may be saline, which means it has salt in it, which is really bad for the crops. To understand this variability, we need to gather a lot of data from lots of fields, way more than my trusty drone could manage. People in this area of research call this precision agriculture, where individual parts of each field are grouped into management zones and given specific crop input prescriptions. The ultimate goal is to use this data to become more efficient, to tailor how different areas of your land will perform and adjust that management based on it. But the work can be cumbersome. It was being done on a small scale, on a field-by-field basis. And that's when researcher Bruno Basso from Michigan State University introduced me to something called the Google Earth Engine. Bruno used satellite imagery from within the Earth Engine to analyze the productivity of cornfields all across the Midwest. I'm sure many of you are familiar with Google Earth or Google Maps. Google Earth is a turbocharged version of Google Earth where you can access and analyze almost all of the publicly available satellite imagery and Earth observation data that has ever been collected from anywhere in the world. And for academics, it's free. With this handy new tool, we could explore crop images, see where the productivity was varying within a field, and start to understand more about production and yields. And we could do this on millions of acres instead of on a field-by-field basis. And that was the real turning point. We got to work immediately. We learned how to use satellite imagery, weather data, soil data, how to use digital topographic data to tell what areas in the fields were wetter and drier. By looking at how the vegetation changes over time in the satellite images, we could find the areas of the field where the crop gets greener sooner and stays greener longer. Those are the highest yielding areas normally. With data from radar satellites, we could even able to recognize what crop was grown in a field. So yes, we do know what you grew last summer. With these, with these tools at our fingertips, we sought to understand how we can use satellite imagery to solve real-world problems. Our first project was to find the weed kochia, which often can't even be killed by the herbicide glyphosate. We wanted farmers to know where kochia was so they could go out and mow the weed down before the weed produces seed and tumbles across the landscape. To do this, we used drones to take pictures of the weed patches and then used AI to train satellites how to find them and produce weed maps, all with data from space. Then we started to think bigger. Could we evaluate the productivity of land? We observed that there were areas in some fields that were very saline or dry, and these areas almost never grew much of a crop. We call these areas marginal areas, where farmers probably never make much money. If we could show farmers where the marginal land was, then we could alter their management on it to make it more efficient. They could reduce the inputs in that area to save money, and if it was bad enough, maybe they would just stop cropping that area entirely and put it into perennial grass. Now, I never want to tell a farmer to do anything. It's their land, and I knew from personal experience that many farmers, including my father, would never listen anyways. Our work was to give them the information so they could do what they wish. We started mapping these large areas using satellite imagery and machine learning. We worked with farmers who very generously shared yield maps that they had created by modern combines that log the grain yields as they drive across the field. We then used these yield maps to train a machine learning model, predict the yield of 2 different crops, canola and wheat, over a 4-year period. And we finished up doing this for 14 million acres, and it worked great. We were able to see differences within farmers' fields at a resolution of 10 meters. We saw these results as very successful. Then we thought, why not go bigger? Why can't we cover the 70 million acres of cropland in Western Canada? And to date, in fact, that's what we're doing. We're currently mapping all the cropland in Western Canada. We've given our model a name, GAGE, which stands for Geospatial Agroecosystem Inference Engine. Notice the AI in the middle. That's not an accident. And this is just the beginning. The University of Saskatchewan has a new research center, a dedicated space where we can gather to work with this data and use it to answer some of the biggest questions, like where in fields do greenhouse gases get emitted? What drives the biodiversity of soils? What is the best way to develop precision zones for management? And how can we increase the efficiency of fertilizer and other inputs? And this all goes towards answering some of the biggest questions that society has. Like, how can we produce more with less? And how can we continue to feed the world while doing less harm to it? I think you can tell this work excites me, and it should excite you too. It's revolutionary. Our goal at the center is to make Saskatchewan a global force in digital agriculture. But at this point, some of you may be thinking about having these models open in public. Recently, I presented this work to a small group of farmers back where I'm from in Manitoba. When I presented our research and our plans for the future of agriculture, I was up there waving my arms around, and I expected others to be caught up in the excitement and wonder of this incredible technology and what it can do. But the actual response was very different. Some of them were more than threatened. In fact, one of them said, "This is terrible." They had their own questions and concerns. "Who are you selling these model predictions to? You are spying on us. This isn't doing us any good." I was flabbergasted. I didn't know how to respond. I started backpedaling right away. I tried to reassure them, this is open satellite data. We're only sharing our model, not the yield data that farmers had shared. I was panicking. I even started questioning my own research, saying, it's just a model, and it will never be perfect. But deep down inside, I knew that there was more than a grain, maybe even more than a bushel of truth to what they were saying. Our models were good enough that if we shared them outright, we would be betraying our farmer collaborators. At that moment, I realized we were going to have to change how we do things. For the security of our farmers, we can't give everything away, not even all our predictions. We have to think of our cooperators, the farmers, and their livelihood. Our challenge is to make this information available to farmers so they can benefit from it instead of being exploited. Ideally, this would be used for good and not evil. Our solution to this is to create models that can help farmers. We don't want to lose sight of that. We're going to continue to produce applications that can help farmers decide, for example, what crop to grow to avoid root disease, where are weeds so they can destroy them. We will use the yield data in GAGE to identify agronomic limitations to yield in specific parts of their field so that they can go out and better manage those areas. And we will not sell or give away the detailed yield predictions. Farmers' factories are the fields that they grow their crops on. These factories don't have roofs. Anyone can see the satellite images, but without the yield maps and the models that were used to understand them, it's difficult to predict yields. Farmers are sharing yield data with us, and we still very much need that information and the support of our farmers to get this work done. I think we can use this data to do good while still protecting farmer sensitivities and not upsetting the market, whether it be land values, crop commodity prices, or even national security interests. I see a future where this information protects farmers, it doesn't exploit them. We must create an internal method of ethics that helps us achieve this. And that's why we're implementing a policy driven by the simple question, how will the farmers benefit? Where any results we release will have to pass this ethics test. I believe we can use this data and AI for the farmers' good. Farmers like my cousins, my friends, my former students, we're still figuring this out. This is a journey. I want to give farmers the technology they need to succeed in the future. I believe that if we don't keep up, if we don't start integrating AI and modern methods into farming, it's the farmers who will ultimately suffer. Farmers like my cousins back on Shirtliffe Road, which we see in this old satellite image, where my cousin Haley has just bought my great-grandfather's original house he built on his homestead. She's going to be farming there this spring with her dad. Thank you.